Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
You are listening to Brilliance Business, conversations with leading experts in business. I am your host, Mark Stephen Pooler, and today we have a wonderful guest, Dee Twentyman. Dee is a trainer and consultant, and our topic today is helping individuals with chronic pain and IBS. Dee, welcome to the Brilliance Business Show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
I'm looking forward to a conversation with you today, Dee. Before I get started, I just need to make a legal disclaimer that Dee is not offering legal advice or legal assistance. So let's get started with the show. Dee, can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Well, I'm a mum of 2 daughters and I've got 3 granddaughters as well, and I live in the UK on the edge of Northumberland. It's a beautiful area of outstanding natural beauty. I really feel blessed to have lived here for many years now. I developed my business back in 2004, and that was after many years of suffering with IBS and migraines for the past 25 years, really. And I just made it my mission to help people understand that IBS is not a life sentence. A lot of people are told that they have to manage it forever, and I want people to know that it's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be. And I have clients living well now, completely free from symptoms. So I would say to anyone listening who has this condition or knows others who have, that they can be free from it too. So that's it.
It's really nice, Dee, that you're serving people that really need the support, because some people are suffering when there is a way forward to improve the condition, and it's great that you're coming from a place of service. Who are your clients? What clients do you look after?
Well, if people are suffering with IBS and chronic pain, I'm going to say I don't turn anyone away with these conditions. But I would say, though, that people need to be willing to be committed to the process that I use, because it does mean taking a really good look at how a person's thoughts, beliefs and personalities actually feed into that condition. But my main base is predominantly women, because it seems that women are more stressed than men for some reason. I mean, who knew that women would be more stressed than men? And women also seem to have the added disadvantage, if you like, of hormone fluctuations every month. These hormones seem to have a bigger impact on the bacteria in the stomach. I think people might have heard of the microbiome, which is in the stomach. It's all in the gut. So women tend to have these hormone fluctuations, and it's kind of registered differently in the pain centers in the brain of women. So all this means that the pH balance in your body shifts and that kind of thing. And finally, really, we seem to have what's called the embarrassment factor, where many women suffer in silence because of the stigma or the shame.
Yes.
Embarrassment. It's quite a vicious cycle of anxiety that makes it even worse after that. So, yeah, that's my client base.
That's good that you are breaking that stigma and allowing it to be more accessible and more talked about, so that it's not as much of a worry for people that are going through this. Now, Dee, do you recall a specific aha moment that led to the launch of your business?
Yes, I do actually, because it was way back in time. I'm getting on a bit now, Mark. It was back in my mid-20s, after I'd suffered myself with IBS since I was 8 years old. And then migraines became a feature of my life back in my early 20s. And I tried everything I could think of with my diet and the antispasmodic medications that many GPs and medical professionals give people. And I would eat specifically anti-inflammatory foods. And, when you go to the GP and they say avoid cheese, chocolate, alcohol, oranges,
Yes.
trigger migraines, and, you must cut out these spicy foods because these trigger IBS. I had those conversations often with doctors and medics, and then I also had them with, various other people at surgeries and friends of friends. And it was, at this point, I became pretty kind of fed up of the restrictions in my diet, and I thought there's got to be more. There's got to be more that I can be doing. So, and I've been through so many stressful, traumatic situations in my life. I've had several abusive marriages. Before I met my late husband, who was wonderful. He passed away very suddenly, only a matter of weeks after we got married. And I found myself in deep shock and deep grief for several years following that. So life wasn't getting any better. And when I came out of that, I began to notice that even though I had done everything to help my symptoms, there was one thing missing. And that was how I was thinking and feeling. And it was the trigger to investigate, a little bit further. So the less I felt I could eat, the more stressed I became. And I began looking into that, and I found out that my thinking, my beliefs, my expectations, these were the actual dominating factor within my symptoms and many of the people that I'd spoken to as well. Just the same things kept coming up. And that was when I knew I had to do something to help myself and other people with this condition, which is now why I specialise in it. I've had to say, though, it isn't only chronic pain and IBS that are made worse by our thoughts. So many other things in our lives
Yes.
would really benefit from digging deep around in that area. So that was the trigger for me.
I agree totally, Dee, that the thoughts we put in our mind and the rituals and routines we do every day, mindset, meditation, and really tapping into our spirituality, it's so important for our well-being, and it can really have a big impact. And I really enjoyed hearing your ha-ha moment. What really motivates you to jump out of bed every morning?
Well, that's an easy one. That's a really easy one. I just love what I do. It's not difficult to get up and get going when you actually have a passion and you love what you do, and you love seeing the impact that what I do with people to help them get their lives back. It's just brilliant that I get people coming back to me saying, you've changed my life, that kind of thing. And also working for myself means I get the hours to suit me. I can do clients as well. And I really enjoy knowing that I've really helped these people create better lives for themselves, because they just follow the process. I don't actually do the work for them. They do it themselves, but they just follow the process I give them. And it's really lovely to know that each of us can have that impact on other people. I think, over the last year, of course, I've got to be honest and say, as a single woman who relies totally on herself to bring the income in, there is a little tiny bit of that that gets me out of bed every day.
Well, they're great reasons to get out of bed every single day, Dee. What would you say sets your business apart, and what unique need are you filling for your clients?
Right, well, my business is slightly different because I focus on the psychological and the emotional components to IBS and chronic pain. I know that there are many other people doing great work out there with physical therapy for pain, and they're helping people to set up systems for their patients to get through their day. And there are others who work with IBS as well in the medical profession. And many of these focus on the food and the medications when it comes to managing IBS symptoms. But where I come in and why I'm different is that I look at the personality of your client, and I then look at their lifestyle. I then look at their thinking patterns and their belief system that would contribute to pain, quite often in a major way. And then together, myself and the client, we come up with a system for them, and we work holistically with their thoughts, emotions, expectations. I also use natural supplementation, specific herbs, a clean eating diet, because clients want to have something, not only looking around their thoughts and feelings, but they want to have something practical to be doing. So the herbs and the clean eating and the supplementation really helps in that way. I use hypnosis in psychotherapy, and I also use a frequency therapy tool to help align and kind of realign the body's responses to these thoughts and emotions. If I can go a little bit into frequency therapy, what that does is it uses a microcurrents. They're no higher than the electrical impulses of your brain, and these allow the cells of your body to become more permeable, and that means we let more oxygen and nutrition into the cell, and we allow toxins to freely leave the cell, and that creates a cell balance, and then the cells work at their optimum level for as long as they're in our bodies, because we know that cells reproduce every 7 to 10 days. So while the cells are in our bodies, they need to work optimally. So that's what I do as well. So working in this way with IBS, I believe, sets me apart from other people working in this area.
It certainly does. Really interesting stuff, Dee. Why is your service especially important in today's modern world?
Oh, well, currently, from the research I've done, a quarter of the world's population suffer in silence with IBS symptoms. And in the UK, it's 1 in 5. And 65% of these are women. So 40% of the people have mild IBS, 35% have moderate symptoms, and 25% suffer with severe IBS. So if you think about all of that, we've also got health problems as well, which have risen massively with the onset of global restrictions on our movements and all other areas of our lives. With all this uncertainty that's still around, it's creating more anxiety, more depression, and more stress-related conditions. IBS and migraine being 2 of the main physical conditions that are triggered by stress. So, it's really important right now to actually be looking at these kind of things. It's not a good time at the moment for many, many people. This whole global situation that we've all been living in the past 14, 15 months has seen a huge leap in stress-related illness. Some people I've spoken to say that their symptoms actually improved, funnily enough, with not having the worry of going out as much as having to think about all the planning that goes into being more social and getting to offices and traveling, etc. You can imagine somebody with IBS, they've got a lot of planning and things going on in their head to make sure that they can get to a bathroom, and making sure that the trains are not going to be late, and they get really anxious about things. And so these people are now finding symptoms returning because of the stress of thinking, I've got to go back to work, I've got to get into the old patterns of being back at work, or maybe they've got to find another job now that furlough is over. Some people's old jobs are no longer there, so many businesses have closed down and they have to look for new jobs. So that's quite stressful as well. So all the symptoms, all those things are starting to return again. So for these reasons alone, Mark, it's more important than ever that we get the mental and emotional health of people back on track,
Yes.
So they can just get rid of the symptoms. They need to live happier lives.
Definitely, and that's a lot of people suffering, Dee. Could you share just a few more details of the kind of services and products you offer?
Yes, well, I'm currently working on a product at the moment. I'm putting the finishing touches to my system. It's called Embarrassment to Empowerment. It's an online product that people can work through on their own. They do that in their own time. I also offer the option to join a group with others who are in the same situation with this condition, and they can get extra support in that way. I also encourage those who sign up for the program to attend my Q&A sessions each week to help with any questions they might have as they're running through that. But I also provide a training course in my system for other therapists to use as well. If they want to work in this area of health, then I'm always willing to offer training to corporate and education sectors for the health and well-being of the staff. So much time is taken off work, and productivity is really threatened for many businesses. You know, IBS symptoms and migraines can come on very, very spontaneously. And so it's well worth businesses getting into this in their workplace, really, so that, you know, their staff's health can actually be looked after and improve. I also offer one-to-one sessions with myself. I still have a couple of spaces at the moment, and they can also use and purchase the supplements and frequency tools that I use. So they're all the kind of things that I do to offer additional support, you know, between sessions, you know, the supplements and the frequency device. Clients really like the fact that they can actually use that at home between sessions. They don't have to wait a week to come back and see me again to get that. And then I also offer meditations, custom-made hypnosis recordings that they can get as well. And this reinforces their learning as they move through the program. So all these things I offer, Mark, it's like an all-round service, really. Everything links into each other to make it easier to navigate if people want to go through the whole process.
I just love what you're doing, Dee. Now, I know you have all sorts of client success stories. I want you to just pick one that stands out to you.
Right, the one that really, really stands out for me, and I was so happy when this client came into my world, and she actually, the success she had was amazing. It's the one story that I love telling people about. She came to see me because of her symptoms, and we were working together for around 8 weeks. And it took 8 weeks for us to get to the bottom of her thinking around the symptoms. And the main issue that was causing so much anxiety for her was actually the fear around pregnancy. So as you can imagine, this was causing a lot of issues within a relationship, as you can imagine. Yet she really, really wanted a family, but she had this massive fear. And then after a number of sessions, I think it was around 12 sessions by the end, it took some digging on her part to reach the actual trigger. So I worked with her on the pregnancy fear. And lo and behold, her IBS symptoms seemed to disappear within a matter of days. Just as we didn't even work on the IBS symptoms, we actually worked on the pregnancy fear. And the thing that she actually came for, which was IBS symptoms, we didn't have to do anything with. We just worked on the pregnancy fear. And then a year later, Mark, the postman came. I opened this letter, and it had a beautiful letter in thanking me and a photograph of her twins. So she now had the family that she so longed for, and she was still free from IBS symptoms. So that was the thing that really, really made me happy. So that's the one story I love to relate to people.
I just love a success story. Excuse me. I just love a success story, Dee, and that's so rewarding for you as well. Now, you have just been featured in a new book, The Law of Brand Attraction 2, with Dr. John Demartini. Also, we have Sammy Blindell, who's the mind behind The Law of Brand Attraction 2. I'm also a contributor to the book. Just share a little detail about your chapter.
Well, my chapter includes a little bit about my story from when I was 8 years old and the bullying that I went through at school. The fact that I was an anxious child and didn't realise I was an anxious child, because you don't at 8 years old, do you? You just feel unhappy. So my story involves the journey that I went through and how it continued right up until, you know, my 30s, really. With IBS and migraines. And then I share a little bit about how I realised it was my thoughts, feelings, emotions, expectations that were triggering a lot of the physical symptoms. And then I help people with a little bit of the system that I use, you know, a little five-step system that's in there as well. So that's what my chapter is really about, on, you know, looking at mind and basically the mind and body connection to pain and discomfort in the body, really.
I would encourage everyone to go to thelawofbrandattraction.com and grab a copy of this incredible book with, I think there's 27 or 28 experts in the book. There will be definitely someone that you can learn from and take steps to move forward in your business and in life. So go to thelawofbrandattraction.com. Dee, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. I've learned a lot about IBS and how we can move forwards with it without conventional methods, more holistic approaches, which is so great to hear. My last question for you, Dee, how can our listeners get a hold of you? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Okay, well, most of the time people come to me via word of mouth recommendations. That brings me clients in. But I've also got my website, which is resonanceholisticslimited.com. I also speak to others like yourself on podcasts and interviews and speaking events, that kind of thing. And I'm still I still work online at the moment, but I also have a Facebook group called Resonance Holistics Group, and they can get me by sending a direct message on that Facebook group. That's how they can get in touch with me, you know.
Just give us your website address once more, Dee.
It's resonanceholisticslimited.com.
Thank you so much for coming on to the Brilliance Business Show. I've really enjoyed a conversation with you, Dee.
You're very welcome. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope people out there get a lot from what we've talked about today.
You shared lots of value, Dee. You have been listening to the Brilliance Business Show, conversations with leading experts.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.